Okay, this is lesson 5.3, solving systems of equations by elimination. So we've already looked at graphing, substitution. Now the last type of solving systems of equations is elimination. Okay, so this first example, it's way on down. So they give us two equations like always. On these, we don't have to worry about getting them in y equals. So that part is nice. What we do is we look at variables that we can eliminate up and down. Okay, so like this one's a 3 and this one is 2, but those wouldn't cancel because they're both positive. You think of it kind of like one big addition problem. Okay, if you notice though, this 2 is positive and this one is a negative 2 for the y's, those would cancel. So we line them up and solve. So 3x plus 3x is 6x, 2 minus 2y cancels, and then 4 minus 4 is 0. Okay, well, we aren't done. So on this one, we're solving for x because our y's canceled. We could have canceled the x's if that had worked out. It's just whichever one cancels. So now we would divide both sides by 6. Well, 0 divided by anything is just 0. So on that one, x is 0. But to find a solution, we have to have an x and a y because it's a point. So what we do now, we take that number we got and just plug it back into one of the two original equations. It does not matter which one. So I'm just going to plug 0 in for x on one of them and solve for y. So they chose to plug it into the very first one. So instead of x, we now have 0. 3 times 0 is 0. So I'm left with 2y equals 4. So I divide both sides by 2 to get that y is 2. So our solution is 0, 2. So the whole point is you're trying to line it up and cancel out one of the variables. Okay, it doesn't matter which one, just whichever one's easiest. This one, it was already set up to cancel the y's, so that's what we did. Okay, so we're going to look at another example. So on this one, it says solve the system of equations by elimination. So if I look, here's a positive 3, negative 6. This one's negative 10x, negative 5x. So none of those cancel, okay? So we have two options. Depends on what you're trying to cancel, okay? So if we wanted to cancel the y's, this one's a negative 6. I could make this 6 by just multiplying this whole thing by 2. If I wanted to cancel my x's, one would need to be negative 10, the other one positive 10. So I would multiply this whole equation by negative 2. Which is what they did on this example, so I'll stick with that for the example. So what that means is you're literally multiplying your whole equation. Think of it like parentheses that you have to distribute in. Negative 2 times negative 5x is positive 10x. Negative 2 times negative 6y is positive 12y. And then you have negative 2 times 23, which is negative 46. Okay, that's how they got those. So that's now your new equation, so you line them up. Negative 10x plus 10x cancels, which is what we were trying to do. We were trying to get our x's to cancel, or eliminate, so that we could solve for y. So we now have 3 plus 12y, or 3y plus 12y, which is 15y. 1 minus 46 is negative 45. From here, we divide both sides by 15. Doesn't write very well. And we get that y equals negative 3. We only have half of our solution. Our solution is always x then y. So I take that and plug it back into one of those two original equations. Does not matter which one. You're just going to plug in negative 3 for y and solve for x. Okay, so they plugged it into the second one, which is perfectly fine. Let me erase my stuff now. Really wish it would slide with me, but it doesn't. Okay, so we take and plug in negative 3 in for y. So that means negative 6 times negative 3, which is positive 18. So then from here, we are solving for x. So we first get rid of the number that's by itself. So we subtract 18 from both sides. And that leaves me with negative 5x equals 5. And then we divide by negative 5 on both sides. So x equals negative 1. So our solution here, the x was negative 1, y was negative 3. So that is your point where they intersect. You can still double check this on your calculator by plugging it in and finding where they intersect. And it would be the point negative 1, negative 3. If you plug it in the calculator, though, you have to make sure they're in y equals form, or else you can't plug them in the calculator. Okay, so some of you may still want to try and do that one to get the answer, but you have to know how to use elimination. You have to know the different ways. So I want you to go ahead and try all 3 of these. We're going to get good practice at this. Okay, try all 3 of these, and then I will go over it with you. On 1, 2, and 3, we are solving by elimination. So on number 1, if you notice, we already have 2 of our variables that are opposites. So we can now just solve. 7 plus 5 is 12. Positive 2y plus positive 4y is 6y. 3x minus 3x cancels. So now I solve for y by dividing by 6. 12 divided by 6 is 2. So I have my y. Now to figure out x, you just plug it into either equation. It doesn't matter. I'm going to plug it into the first one. So 3x plus 2 times 2, because y is 2, equals 7. 2 times 2 is 4. So I have 3x plus 4 equals 7. Subtract 4 from both sides. 7 minus 4 is 3, and then divide by 3. So my x is 1. So my solution on this problem is 1, 2. Okay, on number 2. Nothing immediately just cancels out. I don't know if you can see this color, but we're going to try. So we're going to have to multiply one of them. So it just depends on what you're wanting to cancel. If I want to cancel the x's, this one is a 3, so I would have to multiply this whole thing by negative 3. Or this one is a negative 3y. This one's positive, so I would just have to multiply this whole thing by 3y, which is what I'm going to do. But both of those are correct. So I'm going to multiply this whole equation by 3. So 3 times 3, I'm going to rewrite that first one again. And then I'm going to rewrite that one underneath it. So 3 times 3x is 9x. 3 times y is 3y. 3 times 12 is 36. So now I can solve. This is 1x plus 9x, which is 10x. Negative 3 plus 3y cancels. And 24 plus 36 is 60. So I divide both sides by 10. X is 6. So now I go back and plug it into one of the originals to figure out y. I'm just going to plug it into the first one. Doesn't matter which one you plug it into. 6 minus 3y equals 24. Subtract 6 from both sides. I have negative 3y equals, let's see, what is that, 18. Divide both sides by negative 3. 18 divided by negative 3 is negative 6. So my solution is the point 6, negative 6. That color I can tell is not the easiest to read, so I'll switch up colors on this last one. I'm just trying to see if the red, I think that's a little easier to read. Okay, so on this last one, again, nothing immediately cancels. So to cancel my x's, almost said my 4's, my x's, this one would need to be multiplied by negative 4. Or if I wanted to cancel my y's, this one would need to be multiplied by negative 4. So again, it doesn't matter which one you do. So I will multiply this one by negative 4. So I have negative 4 times x, which is negative 4x. 4 times negative 4 is negative 16. Or excuse me, 4 times positive 4. 22 times 4, let's see, is negative 88. And then I rewrite my second one. Might have to grab my calculator on this one. Negative 4x plus 4x cancels. I have negative 16y plus 1y, which is negative 15y, equals negative 88 plus 13. Let's see, a minus 3 is 5, so it's negative 75. Okay, so now I divide both sides by negative 15. A negative and a negative is positive. Let's see, 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, so 5. Now I take that and plug it back into one of the equations. So 4x plus 5 equals 13. Subtract 5. And last step, divide by 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So my solution on this one is the point 2, 5. Okay, now let's look at example 3. Okay, so the next example is solving real life problems. So it says a business with 2 locations. So we have a little cake bakery I want to go. That sounds really yummy. Okay, so it has 2 locations. They buy 7 large delivery vans and 5 small delivery vans. Location A receives 5 large vans and 2 small vans for a total cost of $235,000. Location B receives 2 large vans and 3 small vans for a total cost of $160,000. What is the cost of each type of van? So the first thing we kind of look at, location A. It had 5 large vans and 2 small vans for a total cost of $235,000. So that would be your equation. It says down here, okay, we can let X be large vans, Y be the small van. If you switched them, or if we were to switch them, that's okay, as long as we kept it the same in both equations. So that would be 5X plus 2Y equals the $235,000. For location B, they had 2 large vans, 3 small ones for a total cost of $160,000. So that would be 2X plus 3Y equals 160. So they have that here. So here's our equations. So what we have to do is look at your variables, okay? If we're going to cancel them, we got to first look at them. I have 5X and 2X, 2Y and 3Y. So on this one, neither of them can just change to the other. So sometimes we might have to change both of them. Well, not X and Y, but both of your numbers out front. So if I wanted to cancel the Y, I would have to change both of these, is what I mean, for it to cancel. Sometimes it's not so simple. You have to multiply both equations. So they decided to solve for Y, eliminate Y. So that's what we'll do on this one. So they're both positive, so one of them has to be multiplied by a negative. 2 and 3, the closest thing they can change to is 6. So I could multiply this top equation by -3 or by 3. And depending on what I do, the bottom equation I would have to multiply by either 2 or -2. So let's multiply this top one by -3. When we do that, 5X times -3 is -15X. 2Y times -3 is -6Y equals, and then you have to do 235,000 times -3, which gives us -705,000. Then we have to multiply our bottom equation by 2. So I have 2X times 2 is 4X, 3Y times 2 is 6Y, 160,000 times 2 is 320,000. So here's our 2 equations that we can finally now line up and eliminate. So we line them up. -15X plus 4X is -11X. -6Y plus 6Y cancels. That was the whole point that we multiplied. We were eliminating our Y so that we can solve for X. And then -705,000 plus 320,000 is -385,000. So here's our new equation. We divide both sides by -11. I don't have much room. And that gives me, that X equals 35,000. So there's the first part of my solution, 35,000. Now we have to figure out our Y. So I take this 35,000, I go back to my original equations, and I plug it in for X on one of them. It doesn't matter which one. They chose the first one. So that means 5 times 35,000 plus 2Y equals 235,000. And they went ahead and just solved it all in one step. So you first would multiply that, then subtract it to the other side, then divide both sides by 2 to get that Y is 30,000. So this is our solution. That just means a large van costs $35,000, a small van costs $30,000. So what you are going to do now, problem number 4, you're not having to do quite a full problem like that. It just says solve the system in example 3 by eliminating X. So all you're going to do is now take these same equations, so you can copy these down, and instead of eliminating Y like we did, they want you to eliminate X. So you're going to try that, pause the video and try it, and then I'll go over it with you. Problem number 4, they tell us to solve by eliminating X. So we've already eliminated Y in the example I just worked out. So now we're going to look at eliminating X. So I have 5X and 2X. So to make those the same, the closest thing would be 10 and -10. So this top one, I'm going to have to multiply by either 2 or -2. And depending on what I do on that one, I have to multiply the bottom by 5 or negative 5. And again, you get to kind of choose which one you make negative. So I'm going to, I'll do it in a different color, multiply the top by negative 2, and I'm going to multiply the bottom by 5. Because I want these to cancel, so I'm going to make one 10 and one negative 10 so that they'll cancel. So on top, negative 2 times 5x is negative 10x. Negative 2 times positive 2 is negative 4y. And then I'm going to plug this one in the calculator. That comes out to negative 470,000. Then my next one, 5 times 2x is positive 10x. 5 times 3y is 15y. And then 160,000 times 5 is 800,000. All right, so now we work on this. Negative 10x plus 10x cancels. Negative 4 plus 15 is 11y. Equals, I have negative 470,000 plus 800,000. And that comes out to 330,000. Last step for this one is to divide both sides by 11. When we do that, we get 30,000. That's y. So then to solve for x, I take this and plug it into one of the original equations. So I'm going to plug it into this one. So I have 2x plus 3 times 30,000 equals 160,000. Well, 3 times 3 is 9, so that's going to be 90,000. Next, we would subtract. $16 minus 9 is 7. 70,000. And then last step is to divide by 2. So that should, if I'm not mistaken, come out to 35,000. Yeah, I was right. Couldn't remember if it was 3,500 or 35,000. 35,000. So my solution is the point 35,000, 30,000. It's a lot of commas in there. I just won't put them on this. There we go. So 35,000 and 30,000.